If he'd stolen a girl, where would he hide her? What a way to be thinking, to catch oneself thinking. Wells Davidson stumbled on a clump of brush. The smell of sage rose into the cold, dry air. The sky above was the palest blue. Small airplanes crisscrossed through it, searching. Other members of his team, other neighbors trying to help, walked 10 feet on either side of him. A tall man with dark hair wearing a ski parka over a dress shirt. A woman in a khaki outfit with a white hat like a cloth sombrero. All through the foothills of Boise, people swarmed in these organized groups, searching, calling. From up here, Wells could see the ridge of Saddleback Park, the towers of the hospitals downtown. He could see his neighborhood far below, the small house that he shared with his wife, Francine. He could even see the black shape of their dog, Kilo, circling the yard, next to the picnic table, looking up and probably wondering why so many people were in the hills again this afternoon. The girl had disappeared 2 nights before. 9 years old, and she'd been sleeping in her backyard, on a trampoline with her younger sister, who didn't wake up until the next morning, an empty sleeping bag beside her. Wells had known the girl, her name and her sharp face, her wild black hair. She waved when she coasted down the sidewalk on her red bicycle. That was all. She lived just down the street, 2 houses from him and Francine. The trampoline, at this distance, looked like a dark hole bored deep into the earth. Yesterday morning he'd looked out his kitchen window and seen 3 men in suits and gloves, dusting for fingerprints, picking at the black mat with tweezers, photographing it. "Hurry up," someone called. "Keep the line straight." It was the short, thick police officer who led their search team. His gun belt looked heavy, the crown of his felt hat lined dark with sweat, despite the cold. Wells had thought that 1 day of searching would be enough. After all, if the girl had been stolen away, it was probably in a car, and she was now miles, states from here. Francine disagreed. Almost 8 months pregnant, she wanted to search. She thought that evidence from the trampoline or wherever else might suggest that the girl was closer. Francine was with another team now. She'd started earlier, while he was helping with the tents again. He'd listened as the sheriff spoke to the volunteers, saying, "We know in our hearts that she's alive," saying that it had been 2 nights, but that it was quite possible that whoever had done this was sitting tight, waiting for things to quiet down so they could move farther away. Wells glanced up, just as his team met another group of searchers. The 2 lines slipped through each other, paths crossing at right angles. He slowed, surrounded for a moment by girls, blonde girls in stocking caps and heavy coats, boots. Serious expressions on their faces, chapped lips set tight. They were the lost girl's classmates, perhaps, or from her church, or both. They didn't look up as they passed, just straight ahead, down at the ground, searching for their friend. The wind whistled sharp and cold. It was mid-October. If the weather had been like this 2 days ago, the sisters would never have slept outside on the trampoline. But it had been warmer, and they had wanted to try out their new down sleeping bags. Plastic shell casings, a piece of cloth that wouldn't have anything to do with anything, shards of broken bottle so cloudy they looked like beach glass. Wells picked it all up with his gloved hand, slipped it into the clear plastic bag he'd been given. What would he do if he found the girl? What if she was dead? He was supposed to leave her be, to alert the others, not to touch her. But that didn't seem right somehow. If a person found his dead body in a place like this, tangled in the sagebrush, with shards of sharp stones around his head or blood on his throat, he'd want them to reach out, at least to touch his shoulder, comfort him somehow, close his eyes. They were circling back to where they'd started now, over a slight ridge along a line of half-finished houses, all exposed plywood and white Tyvek, construction sites cordoned off with yellow tape. The streets here weren't paved yet. Down below, all the vehicles and the orange tents stood at the end of the